What film stock should you buy? Whether you're brand new to film or you're just looking for a last minute gift, buying film can sometimes feel overwhelming. If there's a better brand, a different type, what these numbers mean, and I'm here to cover all of those things. If you are new here, my name's Andrew. If photography or anything creative related are up your alley, please consider subscribing to my channel for more videos like this. So if you're absolutely brand new to film, here's a couple quick shortcuts that will help you understanding what it is that we're covering. So first of all, we're going to be covering 35mm film, which is the most common. And when the average person imagines film, this is usually what they're thinking of. So while there are other sizes of film out there, make sure you're only worrying about the ones that say 35mm. And another very important thing to look out for, it should be very clearly listed, but there is a difference in how many exposures will fit on one roll. The most common is 36, but there are some out there that are 24. Generally speaking, it's probably going to be better to buy the 36 exposure rolls, are actually more cost effective than buying 24 exposure rolls. The naming of the film follows this format: brand, followed by the name of the film, and lastly a number, which is the ISO. The ISO is the sensitivity of the film, meaning the lower the number, it is less sensitive to light, and the higher the number, the more sensitive to light. Less sensitivity is great for outdoor situations when you have plenty of light, and higher sensitivity are better for indoor situations or darker lighting. But the higher you go into the ISO, the more expensive it gets, and the more grainy, which may or may not be a desirable look for you. So that's a good thing to keep in mind. So of the many types of film we're going to be covering in this video, I will be categorizing them into three areas. First, we'll start off with the more budget-friendly film options, then to the more quirky experimental ones, and lastly, the more higher quality film aimed more toward film enthusiasts and professionals. And with each film, you can expect me to cover what the film is, how much it costs, the general types of colors and tones that you can expect, and lastly, what I like and don't like about it. And one last rule of thumb, anything below $10 per roll of 36 exposures is considered budget friendly. Anything over $10 is considered more on the expensive side. All of these pricings should be pretty up to date, but if you're able to buy bundles or packs of film, it will save you that much more. Let's begin with those budget film stocks. First up, we have one of my favorites. When I was learning, this was what I bought all the time. Here we have Fuji 400. Alternatively, there's also Fuji 200. 200 being better for broad daylight and 400 being slightly more versatile. Generally speaking, most Fujifilm film stocks have pretty saturated greens, pack more punch in color due to contrast, and usually lean more magenta in the shadows. And my quick disclaimer, all film stocks can be edited, so I'll be speaking very generally, and they're not absolute written in stone verdicts about what the film can and can't do. This one is great for beginners. The grain is pretty well managed and not too noticeable, and this is a film stock that you can pretty consistently find cheaper than basically anything else on this list. Up next is from Kodak, and this is Ultramax 400. Now you'll notice the theme here that most of these film stocks are going to be 400 because once you start getting into the 800 range, things get pricey really fast. Ultramax generally has pretty low contrast. It generally ignores blues and greens, leaving them pretty washed out, and favors warmer colors. So all around, Ultramax is low contrast and warmer with low saturation in the cooler range of colors. This one is a pretty safe average film stock with not too many notable features. Next in this category is colorplus 200, and this one actually strikes a very close resemblance to that of Ultramax due to the fact that most Kodak film stocks very generally tend to follow the same structure, meaning they generally favor those warmer colors and usually have lower contrast. colorplus is still a safe pick. However, since it's a 200 speed film, I would still value the versatility of the 400 just a little bit more. And the last one in this category is Kentmere 400. Kentmere is relatively newer compared to all of these other film stocks and is a black and white film. And the reason that I'm bringing it up is it's very easily the cheapest one on this list at roughly between $5 and $7. So if you're into black and white, this is a very easy recommendation to make. As for color, none, though Kentmere generally is pretty low contrast, but I've seen a lot of success and a very popular method of using kentmere is by pushing it 2 stops, which brings back quite a bit of that contrast and rivals some of the looks that you can get out of HP5. And if that sentence made no sense to you, let's both agree not to talk about how nerdy this topic is and move on. The next section is for these quirky, fun, experimental film stocks. In this category is basically anything that Lomography sells. Lomography makes films or repurposes other Kodak films, and you'll see that that's a common practice with a lot of these. Lomography film stocks definitely do not range more into that professional quality. They're usually a bit more quirky in their coloring, either very saturated or very not saturated. And in the examples that you're seeing now, these were taken with Lomography 800. And of course they do have plenty of other options, but they definitely range more in that experimental category. And unfortunately, a lot of these in this quirky category are almost double the price of the ones that we were just talking about. So you're definitely paying for the look. Lomography very generally is not great for professional use and aims more at a consumer grade, quirky, quality type of film. Up next, very similar to this category, is anything from Cinestill. Nerd hat. Cinestill respools Kodak movie film that has the remjet layer removed. So any bright highlights are going to have this red burn around them. Cinestill is not the only company that does this, so halation is not unique to Cinestill if you like this, but they are readily available and usually easier to buy, and Cinestill is the most expensive in this category. Overall, I generally don't love the look of the halation effect, so Cinestill is fun every now and then, but definitely as a novelty, mix it up type of film. Last in this category is Phoenix 200. This film stock was actually a big deal because it was created from scratch as a crazy difficult undertaking, and this batch was created as a sample really to experiment if this product should be released into the markets long term, and as a test to see if the company should continue down this direction of investing in color negative film. So at this one being on the cheaper end of the quirky film stocks, this one has been somewhat controversial. Does not have that professional look necessarily, does have this halation effect, it's extremely contrasty, it's got strong reds and greens, so if it's a look that you like, this one's not a bad option as it supports Harman and tells them to continue creating brand new film stocks for us to enjoy. Personally, I won't be using Phoenix long term, but I did buy 3 rolls to show my support for what they're doing. Next up are the more professional side of film stocks, and these will be on the more expensive end. Starting with probably the most common and overpriced, Kodak makes these, and Portra, short for portrait, created this film as their highest end professional line of film. It offers generally warm colors, somewhat low contrast, and an extremely malleable and easy to edit film stock that allows a lot of flexibility. So of all of the options, Portra probably gives the most true to life look regarding colors and contrast. However, you'll definitely be paying for that premium price tag, as even after buying it in a pack, you still end up in that roughly $15 price range, and even worse if you get up to, say, something like Portra 800 at roughly $20 for 1 roll. That one really hurts. Now, still by Kodak and still in the professional line is Ektar. Ektar 100 is only sold in the 100 ISO, so while it does have a very low amount of grain, this one may struggle a bit more because it's less flexible due to that 100 ISO. 100 meaning it's probably only great for broad daylight outside. The colors on Ektar are very saturated, almost too saturated. The blues tend to be almost in this violent cyan range. So for me personally, I use Ektar sparingly. Next is one that we mentioned before, and that is HP5 400. This is also a black and white film, and as we briefly referenced this one before, HP5 is generally one of the most popular options, has great looking grain and contrast, and is definitely a safe option to buy if you're wanting professional quality black and white film. And you'll notice that black and white in general is always going to be cheaper than color negatives, but if you still want it even cheaper, I would still recommend getting kentmere over HP5 due to that push trick that we talked about earlier. So I lied. There's one last bonus category because I didn't know where to put it, but this bonus category belongs to my personal favorite, the film stock that I buy the absolute most of, and that is Kodak Gold 200. Kodak Gold 200 was technically considered a more consumer grade quality film stock, but actually carries a lot of resemblance to that of the Portra line. The contrast is good, warm tones, pretty pretty lifelike colors, and really strikes that perfect balance of being one of the more affordable options and amazing quality. This is the film stock that I stock up the most on. Kodak Gold gets me 90% of the way toward where Portra would get me at a fraction of the cost. My fridge is literally full of this stuff. Also, if you're wondering why this looks different, it's a different size of film, but my fondness of this film definitely still carries. So I'm sure there's plenty of film stocks out there that did not make it onto my list, but I wanted to primarily talk about film that I have experience with and examples to show. However, while I still think this is a very comprehensive list, by all means, please share your thoughts, recommendations, and ideas down in the comments below so that we can all benefit and learn from each other. If you like this video, like it. It actually makes a difference. Do not forget to subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.